Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to the sheep pen, bah, where no goats are allowed. So, first of all, before we get started on today's message, I want to thank all of my viewers who support me financially. This is a viewer-supported channel. I do not take any money from YouTube, so you won't get interrupted by commercials here. I hate being interrupted. So thanks to all of you who support me. This is a one-man show. I don't have any employees. There aren't any plexiglass pulpits or expensive offices. You're simply paying for my basic support and my basic essential needs. I live in a cabin in the woods, so you're not going to be wasting your money here. You're just going to be keeping me afloat. So thanks to all of you who support me financially. Thanks to all of you who share this message, who share the videos, who like and subscribe and comment. I'm going to encourage you all to join me over on Twitter. I'm going to put a link to my Twitter account in the description, along with the PayPal link, so you can contribute. I'm also adding Cash App, so those of you who use Cash App can now donate to my cause here through Cash App. And yeah, just pay attention to the description, because there's a lot of valuable information in there, including an email address to get a hold of me. Many of you know that I received a 7-day suspension from YouTube. Many of you know that I also had my good knee blow out and had about 4 or 5 days of complete agony. And this was clearly a case of demonic backlash. So it's prompted this sermon today, where I'm going to talk about spiritual warfare and the risk of demonic backlash. You know, you can't expect to get into a fist fight and not get hit. If you go into a knife fight intending not to get cut, you will probably get killed. If you go into spiritual warfare, you should expect backlash. Now, what is backlash? It comes in many forms. Let's look at the base form, which is an exorcism. You're face to face with somebody who's demonized. You are engaged in the attempt at delivering them from the demonization, and you can get attacked in that moment. This attack, this counterattack or ambush, this backlash, can be seen in various movies, including The Exorcist, where the demon will actually physically attempt to attack the exorcist, or he will use his demonic contacts to reveal some secret sin or past sin of the exorcist in an attempt to throw them out of the saddle, in an attempt to cause them to retreat and withdraw from the attempt at deliverance. So this is the first form of backlash. This occurs typically in a demonized person you're face to face with. You know, many years ago, I was listening to a sermon in person. I was watching a preacher who was from South Africa, and he was very much an exorcist and an old sage, as it were, an old wise man concerning spiritual warfare, very accomplished in what he does. And he was a very frail old man, basically holding onto the pulpit to stay upright. Easily, you could blow him over with a feather. At the end of his sermon, he did ministry, hands-on ministry at the altar, and people lined up to get prayed for. He had a deliverance gift and a physical healing gift as well. And so many people were there trying to get prayed for, when a woman who was a member of our church, a daughter of one of our deacons, and a member of the United States military, she was in uniform, was about to be deployed to Iraq, and no one had a clue that she was demonized, not even her own family. And she got into the line, I'm assuming with the idea to seek some kind of deliverance or intervention, probably for internal thoughts. That's where demonization starts. Your thought life gets really jacked up. Your mind gets hijacked by this circular thinking, and confusion sets in, doubt, disbelief, anguish, all kinds of mental problems become evident at the beginning of demonization. So she was more than likely going up there to get help to begin with. As she approached the line, I saw her get more and more agitated. She started looking like she was looking for a way to run. I could see the fight or flight instinct in her start to boil up, and it caused me to get the attention of the trained bouncers that we had in the church, basically ushers, whose job it was from time to time to escort people out or literally lay hands on people if necessary. Of course, they're there to catch people if they fall out into the spirit, that kind of thing as well. And they were very well trained in this church. So I kind of, hey, watch this one. You know, I knew this person pretty well, but she was definitely acting out of character. As it became her turn, she was struck with this fight or flight moment and became very much agitated and looked like she was exhibiting what the law enforcement would call furtive movements, right? And the bouncers begin to kind of the ushers begin to kind of circle around her, two or three of them, and get ready in case something happened because she was showing all the signs. In that moment, she did the craziest thing. She became a velociraptor. Her hands went up like this, her neck jutted out. She took on a very much a lizard type of persona and look. Her reptilian, I guess you could call it that, nature came to the surface. She was taking high steps and just deciding whether she was going to attack this preacher or run away. And in that moment, she stepped up and she raised her hand back in the shape of a claw and she reached out to take a swipe at this frail little preacher. And he was tuned in enough to see it coming himself. And he just held up one finger and he says, lay not your hands upon the man of God. And that woman went to take her swipe and she just froze. She looked at her own hand-claw combination and she let out a screech that sounded just like a velociraptor from Jurassic Park, right? And as she made the swing and her hand froze in with this man's fingers basically stopping her in her tracks, the ushers reached in, scooped her up. She began to kick and scream and manifest, and they dragged her off to a room where a deliverance session occurred and her demons were cast out of her. Now, that's a perfect example of an attempt at demonic backlash. Anytime someone is battling within themselves to seek help, the devil doesn't want them to. The demons don't want them to get help. So you start to see, first and foremost, this internal conflict, this battle within themselves, this fight or flight, confusion. When you see that happen, you know you might become a victim of type 1 of demonic backlash, a physical attack. Now, I wish I had the faith in my own spiritual abilities, right? In my own ability to be tuned into God and exhibit that kind of power that I could hold up one finger. But until I get to the place that old preacher was, that old South African preacher got to, until I get to that level of faith and confidence, I'm glad I have a little bit of the wax on, wax off kind of, Karate Kid skills. So having some basic hand-to-hand combat skills, the ability to at least deflect or dodge an attack, is something that I'm glad I have, right? Until I always try the lay your hands not on the man of God routine, but a couple of times I've had to wax on, wax off, and take a jump back. But the next level of demonic backlash is in the form of some kind of accusation. This is one of the reasons why in my deliverance training, we always operate in pairs. We never do deliverance on a member of the opposite sex unless our second is a member of the opposite sex. So, a man and a woman can do deliverance on a woman. 2 women can do deliverance on a woman, but 2 men should not. And you should never do deliverance one-on-one without some form of protecting yourself. Video or audio recording can be seen as a violation of their person's privacy, but at the same time, it could protect you in the event of a false accusation. So one of the ways I combat that is if the devil tells you where you've been, remind him where he's going. So you're going to see a theme here that the best defense against some of this stuff is a counterattack. And one of the ways you counterattack an accusation or an attack verbally from the demonic entities is to remind them where they're going, right? To remind the devils of their ultimate fate, which is to be cast into the lake of fire. And that will typically stop them in their tracks because they hate hearing it. They hate it because they know it's true, right? Another form of backlash is when you have done something for God and you completed it and you got out clean, which happens most of the time. Most of the time you do stuff for God, you don't get attacked physically, you don't get attacked verbally, and you are successful because God is a winner, and it's good to be on the side of the winner, the ultimate winner, right? God's going to win in the end, and he does. Now, when you've walked away clean, there can be another form of backlash. This can be what I call a concerted or organized demonic backlash that includes demons that are associated with the people that you helped, demons that are associated with taking you down already, and all of the other demonic entities and all of their information and all of their resources. I recently came under this kind of demonic backlash. What caused the demonic backlash? Well, I was on the advance for Jesus. I had recently received some information that I fully intend to reveal eventually, not on this format, right? So, I had recently helped an innocent man get out on bond. I had helped a family retain custody of an infant in a bad situation and helped elevate them to a better situation, right? So I had been kicking the devil in the teeth and taking back what he stole from us. And, when you do that, you can expect a counterattack. A backlash is basically a counterattack. And that kind of backlash that happens after the fact is one of the harder things to deal with when you're doing work for Jesus. It's the root of the old saying, no good deed goes unpunished. And you have to be aware that when you go into a fight, you're going to get hit. You might get hit back. They might take revenge. The demonic might take revenge on you. Here's an example. I once did a deliverance session that was one of the more difficult ones I've ever done. And part of it was, at the time I did it, I was out of authority and believed that mattered. Ultimately, the only authority you need is authority from the Holy Spirit, right? Authority from Jesus Christ. And otherwise, you end up like Simon the sorcerer from the Bible, and the demons just attack you and rip you from head to toe if you don't have protection, right? But I, at the time, believed. See, what you believe is very important, right? The devil can use what you believe against you, so make sure what you believe is right. And I, at the time, believed I had to have some kind of backing or authority from a church body. So I was operating in my belief system in a position of being out of authority. I no longer believe that my authority comes from on high, not from some clergy member. But the devil used my own lack of faith about my authority to attack me. So it was a very difficult, very difficult fight. The woman in question believed that her child was plotting to kill her, and believed that she would have to kill her own child before her child killed her. The woman also believed erroneously that she had lupus. This was a demonic deception, but she was exhibiting all the physical symptoms of lupus, even though doctor after doctor had told her it was psychosomatic. So she was under this psychosomatic control. And so this demon that was doing this to her was very powerful. Convincing a person that they have a disease takes a very powerful demon. So I knew I wasn't dealing with your run-of-the-mill demon here. This woman was of the legion's variety and very demonized. Now, I was ultimately successful. I ultimately turned her life around. She ultimately became a Christian, and it was a victorious thing, and I did succeed, right? Also, another clue to me that I didn't need that coverage. However, at the time I did it, I didn't know that, and I didn't have that faith, and the devil used it as an open door to attack me. And immediately following the deliverance process in dealing with this woman, I began to exhibit all the symptoms of lupus. I was down in bed, and I knew what I was dealing with. I knew it was a demonic backlash, and I also knew that it had me so weak that I didn't feel I could fight back. And so I called upon a person who used to assist me in deliverance, and they rushed to my aid. They prayed over me, took care of me for a couple of days, and I eventually recovered without a scratch. But it was a fight. I took one on the chin. Now, I don't waste a lot of time trying to explain to you how to prevent backlash. I'm more of the type that tells you to expect backlash. What do you do when you get that backlash? First thing you do is counterattack. Now, sometimes that can be really hard. In the case of my most recent backlash, I was able to counterattack for a while until the attack became a physical one when my knee collapsed and I was in all of that pain. It was really hard for me to counterattack. But the answer is double down on attacking the devil. So if you come under attack, don't go into defensive mode. Don't withdraw. Don't think, what have I done, and run for the hills, but rather keep slugging, right? Come back at them even harder. So when I received this hit from the devil and he took my YouTube channel down for 7 days, I did some things that I meant to do all along. I started a Twitter page. I investigated how I could become basically a YouTube type provider, a video provider on this alternate platform of Twitter. I didn't just research it. I made a move. I made an action on it. And every time I got my mind clear enough, I tried to do something more to undo the devil's work, right? And, you know, one of the best ways to overcome an attack on yourself is to pray for other people, intervene in other people's situation. There's an old saying that sometimes it makes you feel better to help other people who are having problems. It distracts you, but it not only distracts you, it's a 1-2 punch. It's a gut punch to the devil, right? When you are injured yourself, when you are under demonic attack, when you are being beaten down, pray for other people, help other people, do good deeds, double down on going against the devil in this world in a real and tangible way. And so, you know, I started the Cash App. I've been complaining, you know, people have been complaining I should do for a long time. I started on Twitter, right? I kept after YouTube and was prepared to fight back, right, if I didn't get the suspension lifted at the prescribed time. They ended up stretching 8 days out of it, but I understand why they did that now. It's a long story, but they got 8 days of suspension out of me. But I accomplished a great deal during that period of being under attack. And the counterattack is what caused the devil's hold to be broken. It's what caused the devil's plan to be thwarted. That the worst thing you can do when facing a demonic backlash for a good deed is to lay down, is to not continue doing what you're doing. In fact, it's the opposite of that. You should double down on what you're doing. You should step up the attack, right? That you're not, if you retreat, all you're going to get is pursued, right? That, you know, the answer to being attacked is a counterattack. The most successful boxers and fighters are counterpunchers. In fact, I'm one of those that I'm actually most effective after somebody has tried to take a swing at me. In that moment, I can counterpunch, right? I'm a counterpuncher. But I also learned this in the game of chess. In chess, when your opponent puts one of your pieces in jeopardy, you have a choice in that moment. You can withdraw, which means he'll just pursue you, and the attack continues, right? Or you can place one of his pieces in jeopardy and let him know that if he takes out this piece, you're going to employ this move and hit him back even harder. And, you know, another element of overcoming backlash is through prevention. One of the ways you can prevent backlash is to keep your righteousness up. Now, many times people will come under attack and they'll get so focused on where did the devil get a hold of me, where is the hole in my defenses, that they let their guard down while they focus on this other thing, and the attack will continue. So my advice is first to counterattack. But once the counterattack is underway, then turn your mind to, okay, how'd the devil get through my defenses? Sometimes it just happens. You can't be completely bulletproof all the time. The devil is, he's like a roaring lion roaming to and fro, seeking whom he may devour. He's trying to get past your armor of God from every angle. So I always go back to the armor of God. Is a piece of my armor not functioning properly? Am I right with God? Is my helmet of salvation firmly in place? Am I doing the right things in my life? Is my breastplate of righteousness protecting me, right? Am I standing on solid foundation here? Am I fighting a fight that is righteous and worthy of my time and energy, right? Am I attacking the devil in the right way? Is my feet shod with the preparation of the gospel? Do I know what I'm getting into? Did I come into it with eyes wide open, or did I come into something blindly? So you want to examine each piece of your armor, each portion, is what I'm doing. Is my attack and my counterattack based in Scripture? Am I doing this in a spiritual way with my spiritual sword in a spiritual fashion, or am I reacting like a human defending himself? That can make your reaction to backlash can be made worse by becoming offended at the person involved. I could easily go after somebody individually, but instead I take a spiritual approach. Make sure you're using a spiritual sword, not a physical one, right? Make sure you're responding in a spiritual way, not in a flesh way. Make sure that your arguments, your efforts, and your defenses are based in truth. Make sure you have all of the facts. These are all of the pieces of the armor of God, as spoken of in Ephesians 8:11-17. And so you want to make sure that your armor is up. How did the devil get to you? That's something you should look at post-game. Immediately, you should counterattack by doing more good works. Go out and find some homeless person and feed them. Go out and put the Bible in the hands of somebody that doesn't have one. Make another video on another platform. Go on Facebook or whatever if you've been taken out on one platform, go on another platform and continue your attack. Show the devil that attacking you just causes you to double down. If you ever withdraw, if you ever give in, if you ever let these counterattacks slow you down, stop you, prevent you from what you're doing, the devil will be trained. You'll be training the devil that that's the best way to get to you. And these backlashes, these demonic backlashes for good deeds will continue and actually heighten and become more of a thing. But if you prove to the devil, if you train the devil that if you hit me, I'm going to hit you back twice. If you come after me, I'm coming after you. If you come after my family, I'm coming after your servants, right? In the spiritual realm, okay? You have to always counterpunch, always counterattack. Never just run. If you run, you will be pursued. If you run, the attack will continue. If you want to stop the attack right now, double down on your offense against the devil. Double down on your deliverance. Double down on preaching the gospel. Double down on helping the needy. Double down on Jesus, right? Do what Jesus did. Don't ask yourself what Jesus would do. Do what Jesus did. What did he do? He healed the sick. He cast out demons. He preached the truth. He offered salvation, forgiveness, acceptance. He preached against judgmentalism, right? He taught us that relationship with God is a one-on-one thing, not a community effort, right? It doesn't matter what people think about you. It matters what God thinks about you, right? Taking every thought captive. That's kind of where all this starts. It's real easy to go into the physical world when you get attacked in a backlash and get, up in your head about the whole thing and respond in a kind of, earthly way with earthly emotions. But if you just let that attack breathe into you a general understanding that this is a fight, and I just got hit, so I need to come back even harder. I need to counterpunch. I need to drop my head and take the enemy to the ground. I need to double down on the fight. When you do that, the backlash is minimized. It stops almost immediately, and full recovery from it is possible. If you flee, you'll become like a refugee. The devil will know that this works, and every time you try to do something good, he'll try to take you down in one way or another. You want to be so effective, so doggedly aggressive against the devil that he's literally afraid to bring backlash against you because he knows it's just going to cause you to work even harder. If I had to preach on a broken leg for the rest of my life, I would have. If I had to go out and get an old-fashioned copy machine and make flyers and leave them on cars and public places telling the truth because I was taken off of social media, that's what I'll do. I'm never fighting. I'm never surrendering. I'm never giving in. I'm never backing down. If you hit me, devil, I'm going to hit you twice. I'm going to hit you from directions you didn't even see coming. This kind of spiritual aggression is the way that you get through this backlash. You cannot let them win. And when you lay down, when you back up, when you second guess yourself, when you step away, when you run away, it's all it's going to do is ensure that this tactic will be brought against you in the future, becoming more and more effective until it shuts down every good thing you try to do. I hope you enjoyed this sermon. I hope you got something from it. I do need your financial support to keep going. I do need the bills paid around here so I can afford to charge this phone, keep the lights on, and keep the food in my mouth and the roof over my head. So please support this ministry. It's money well spent. A little goes a long way because I live very low in a cabin in the woods. And I'm going to leave you with this powerful prayer. May God surround us all in his ring of fire and hedge of thorns of protection. May he send mighty angels of sufficient rank, authority, and number to drive the enemy from our midst. And then may he cover us in his peace and protection. May his Spirit empower us to do damage against the evil in this world, to do damage against the kingdom of darkness. And may we experience the true blessings of God. In Jesus' name. We'll see you next time on the Sheep Pen.